Welcome to Alter Your Algorithm. It's a podcast where we talk about what we focus on and how we can make sure it's Jesus. I'm Jackson Wells.
Tyler Stallings.
Thank you for joining us this week on Alter Your Algorithm. Care to tell us what happened last week, Tyler?
All right, so last week we had on Dior. Really love having a conversation with him. A few things that I kind of took from that. There's no testimony without a test. And then him talking about brick by brick, just kind of building that foundation. Those are kind of two main points that I got from last week.
It was a great episode. The title of it was Overtime Mentality and how we got to rely on Christ to get us through some of those challenges, which is always a great reminder. So who do we have this week?
This week we have Julia Roberts from the Hope House, and she works closely with Joy Closet. So Julia, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
For sure. So I'm the Events and Programs Director at Joy Closet, which is a local nonprofit that essentially exists to fill the gap in foster care. So what started as a super small organization several years ago, I think in the basement of a church, has grown into a massive organization that we just look for issues or problems with current foster care and look for ways to figure them out. So we have a mentorship program, we have the Hope House, and we are kind of expanding every day.
That's awesome. So you work, this is for foster care. You're helping not only the kids, but you're also helping the parents involved with the foster care, that's awesome.
Yeah, and DCBS workers. I mean, they're understaffed, and we look at it as kind of a three-pronged system. Like, how can we help the workers that are living it, the families that are trying to fill in the gap, and then the children that are entering into it without, wasn't their choice.
That's awesome. How did you get involved in this world?
Great question. I don't know. I'm an exercise physiologist by trade, so I've always worked in a gym or been around fitness of some sort, and really didn't even want to be a mom when I was younger. I had no desires to be a mom. I thought I would just teach exercise classes and go about my day. But several years ago, I felt called to continue growing our family. We had two older biological babes, and I thought, okay, God is calling us to continue being parents. And I was unable to get pregnant naturally. And so we were in Florida, and we just kind of decided that we would try the foster care route. And then I moved home and kind of got into it here in Hopkinsville. So it was never, I really do think it was a calling more than anything. It wasn't anything that I planned. Don't have any social work background, just called.
I love that. The title of the podcast is Alter Your Algorithm. And sometimes we think we are the ones that are in control of the change in our life. And we kind of have a choice. We can either let the world be what changes us, or we can let the Lord change us. And it sounds like that's exactly what happened to you. The Lord changed you and opened up your home, and that's an awesome thing. Foster parents and children in foster care, they need as much help as they can get. It's an awesome thing.
I think it's always that saying, tell God your plans. If you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. I think that's my whole life,
Yeah.
All right, so how has fostering changed your faith and perspective on serving others?
I think I could answer that several different ways, and it just kind of depends on the day that you ask. I am Catholic, and through this process, I've become very convicted that foster care is the one mission, or one of the missions of the church, that we're just greatly failing at. Specifically, in Catholicism, we're very pro-life, and that's a huge buzzword, and it's a huge topic. But what people fail to realize is that pro-life is from natural conception to natural death. And so while we advocate consistently for birth, no one's advocating for what happens after you get children here. And I think that is one of the things that the Catholic Church has kind of failed with. And when you read the Word of God over and over, you hear James 1:27, pure and genuine religion in the sight of God is taking care of orphans and widows. And you hear it over and over in the book, take care of the orphans, take care of the widows. And when do we do that? I think it's really easy for people to do things that are comfortable, and religion, I think, challenges you. True and genuine religion challenges you to do things that are uncomfortable. And, part of my story was praising in the hallway. When you don't get the answer that you think that you're supposed to get from God, choosing to praise anyway. So when you're stuck outside of that door that just won't open, whether it's in not conceiving a child, or whatever that looks like, not getting that job you thought you were going to get, or not being handed that opportunity that you thought you deserved, praising anyway, and just standing in the hallway and humbling yourself before God, humbling yourself before whatever that is, and saying, like, you know what, I don't understand it, and that's okay. His plan is going to be bigger, and when I see the bigger picture, it's going to be worth it. With our story, I wasn't able to conceive for 6 years. I mean, my oldest was 6, and we opened our foster home again. We got a 5-day-old baby, and I thought we were golden, like we were done. And then 10 days later, we found out I was pregnant. Now, fast forward, it's been 9 months. So it's been 18 months. So we've got a 9-month-old baby and an 18-month-old baby. And they're essentially twins. Like, they wear the same size clothes. They wear the same outfit. They go to the same school. They'll be in the same class. And like, I never could have planned it that way, but God literally put a protector in me for my son, because there's other things that my foster love that hopefully we're able to adopt soon. He's going to have challenges and hurdles that he didn't ask for, but God literally put his protector in me. So now they're the same size, because he's a little guy. He was 5 days old, and he was about, Tyler remembers, he was about 5 pounds, and it was scary to hold him. And then my son came along, and he was 10 pounds at birth, and like ready to, rule the world. But I think that's, the biggest thing with religion for me has been that it's okay to do hard things. It's okay to not get the answer that you thought you wanted, and that there's always a plan. And when it comes to fruition, when you see it, and I can talk about that with the Hope House, like when that comes out, when God's plan shows through, it's so much better than yours ever was, if you just trust in it.
Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that's come up in a lot of episodes is we're about our call, or our purpose, our calling, and things of that. But God has a bigger plan, and a lot of times we want it in our time, and we think no doesn't necessarily mean no forever. It might be no right now. Delayed does not mean denied. God's timing is perfect. So what seems like, we're not getting our way, eventually we're getting his way, and that's what it's supposed to be.
Right.
I think what you said, the thing that you said that stuck out to me the most in that was there is a danger in being comfortable.
Oh, for sure.
And I know that sometimes I'm way too comfortable. I'm content in not doing anything. And that is one of the best ways that Satan wins, is convincing me that it's okay not to do anything. People who are involved in foster care, I think, have an example of the biggest heart, because they are opening their doors to something that they don't know exactly how it's going to affect their lives. Like, you may get to adopt, you may not.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much unknown. But like you said, being pro-life, we've got to take care of the people while we can. If not, we're failing.
And I think, like, for again, just in religion, you look at the Holy Family. So Mary, Joseph, and Jesus, and Joseph was a foster father. Like, he was the first foster father. So we have, in religion, we have this firsthand view of what an unbiological love can do to change the entire trajectory of the world. So when Mary went to Joseph and she was like, I am with child, that was a hard conversation. That was an uncomfortable conversation. And then for Joseph to be like, you know what, I'm going to stand by you. Like, we're going to do this, and I'm going to do my best to raise the Son of God. That was not an easy calling. And so, we have that firsthand account, and you see it. And again, you see it in the scripture, and it's like all of these people are talking about, he's a foster father. And then you see, like, take care of the orphans. And it is hard. I mean, right now in my home, I've got a 9-year-old biological daughter, a 7-year-old little boy, that is not mine biologically, an 18-month-old, and a 9-month-old. Like, my house is full. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. Sometimes you just want your space, or your spouse, or your solitude. But that's not what God, he created us to be with community and with family.
It's so important to have a parent figure. And when somebody who's a Christian becomes involved with the foster care program, they have an opportunity to share the most important thing with a child, which is Christ. And you get to show them, okay, who Jesus is. You get to show them how Jesus wants you to live. You talk about the chaos of having a family. I don't have any kids, but but I I teach teenagers, and they drive me crazy sometimes, and I'm trying to teach them as best I can, but there's nothing that quite competes with the influence that a parent has, and so you're getting to imbue all this wisdom on them, and there's so much value in that, and then they get to experience the love of somebody who loves Jesus. That can be one of the most impactful. I think that is one of the most impactful things that can happen to a child.
For sure. And even if it's short time, I always say my first placement, so our first sibling set, which was in Florida, it broke me. I mean, in a lot of ways, it challenged my relationship with God. I mean, that was when I really honed in on like praising in the hallway, because we knew the case and we knew the ins and outs of the sibling set they were 2 and 1, and it was ugly and it was dark and it was awful. Our first placement in Florida really challenged my relationship with Christ and just truly kind of made me rethink foster care in general, or if I was cut out for this. And that's actually what brought us to move back home to Hopkinsville.
So what would you say has been the hardest part? And I guess sometimes whenever there's something that's challenging, there's a fulfilling thing about it. You said you work in fitness, so you know what it's like to put in work to see changes in your body. Like the effort that the challenge takes can provide awesome results. So what would you say is the most challenging yet fulfilling part of being in the foster care community?
For sure. So reunification is the hardest, most beautiful thing, but it's literally the love of Jesus that he shows us daily. So every single day we sin and every single day we get forgiven. And that's what reunification is. It's that these parents work hard towards getting their lives back on track to ultimately be reunited. And it's really hard as man to not try to be the judge and jury, to sit back and be like, okay, God knows best, or okay, this judge knows best, or okay, these people. I think one thing when people get into foster care is they automatically think like, I'm going to be the better parent for this child. And ultimately, their parents are the best parents for the child. Like that is how God wanted it to be. In the church, specifically the Catholic Church, we talk about Peter the sinner versus Peter the saint. So it's the same man. It's the duality of man, right? That we are all the sinner and we are all the saint. That we fail as man, but we are loved with such a great love that we can get back on track and we can ultimately go back, get back on track to get to heaven. And so that for me was a hard kind of stumbling block with our first placements in Florida. It broke me to the point where that was why we moved back home. So we had a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and we had them for about 6 months. And I really thought that they were going to be ours. And their story was horrific. And there was some ugly, dirty, just awful parts of it. And I thought that they were going to be our babies. And we loved them. And they reunited right before Thanksgiving. And I was mad. I was mad at God. I was mad at man. I was mad at the foster care system. I was just mad. And so we moved back home, which is something that I never thought that I would do. My husband's from Owensboro. We love Owensboro. If we were going to move back to Kentucky, we thought it would be there. But I ultimately kind of wanted my mama. So we moved back to Hopkinsville, and we waited for about a year before our hearts were healed enough to go back into foster care. I think that is something that has humbled me as a person, is just knowing that, like, the ultimate goal of foster care is reunification. Our ultimate goal is reunification with the Father too. Like it's the same thing. And so sometimes that, I get the honor of being that parent that ultimately will guide, my biological children to the gates of heaven. But, now I get this distinct honor of being able to guide Honey, who's our, the baby that, he's not a baby, he's 18 months now, but to guide that baby to the gates of heaven too. And I think that is, a beautiful thing. So reunification is hard, but it's beautiful. And then it's also hard and beautiful just knowing that, like, that's your goal, is the gates of heaven and not something on earth.
I like that word, reunification. Being separated from God through sin is what was the need for Jesus. Through him, reunification happens. That's beautiful.
We're friends, so I know I know a lot of these stories, but that's what I love about this podcast is allowing others to have a platform to share their story. And if you don't get anything from this episode, I just think that you should be able to listen to what's being said and don't put a period where God puts a comma. And, it's hard, period. No, it's hard, comma, but you're going to get through it. Or God has bigger plans. And if you stick with it and pray about it, and your heart's in the right place, then good things are going to work out for you.
Absolutely.
I always talk about the season of yeses too. In this season of your life that you're listening to this, and maybe you can't open your home to children. That's okay. That doesn't mean that you can't be involved in foster care some way. Your season of yes looks different. Right now, I've got 2 under 2, and so for me to take in another foster child, they have to give you what's called an exception. And so I have an extra 7-year-old with me, but that's because someone specifically asked for him to be with me right now. And so that's an exception. And he's not going to be with me long. It's just respite. It's just short term. But for me, my season of yes has drastically shifted. Right now, my season of yes is at the Hope House. Which we haven't even really dove into yet, but my season of yes is filling in those other gaps. And so maybe you can't take a child in, but could you cook a meal for someone who is a foster parent? Could you, donate your time, your talent, your treasure, whatever it is, to these other organizations who are the hands and feet of God in this organization or in foster care in general?
Yeah, that we would definitely need to talk about how other people can help, because we might not be able to open our doors, but there's so much good that y'all are doing. I know people want to chip in and help. And so hearing those things are really good.
So Julia, what do you wish that people listening to this podcast knew about foster care?
I'm going to go back to it's okay to do hard things. I think people are afraid that it's going to be hard if they become a foster parent, whether they're thinking that they're not qualified or that they don't have the right resources. It's okay, back to it. It's okay to be uncomfortable. And it's okay to love a child and send them back. I think that when you talk about, I just urge you to think about the Holy Family, right? So imagine when Jesus was on the cross and Mary knew that ultimately, she was losing her son. That was complete agony. I couldn't imagine as a mom, and I've experienced that to such a small degree on earth, losing a child that I thought I was going to get to keep forever. And also through, miscarriages. I mean, how many women do you know that have been affected by miscarriage and the agony and the pain that it's excruciating. And so I think, draw strength from the fact that Mary watched, her child be crucified on a cross, and it was for us. And so it's okay for us to be uncomfortable. It's okay for us to experience that pain and that agony and that misery. And it's okay to cry about it and be sad. And it's okay to move to Hopkinsville to be close to your mom because of it. But you can still do it. You can still find joy in the pain, and you can still find Christ in every aspect of that journey.
Absolutely.
Do you think that there is a fear of getting attached to a kid and then possibly losing them?
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, it's terrifying. And for me, I've mentioned it a couple of times, and by the time you guys hear this, he won't be in my house, but we've got an extra 7-year-old with us right now. And this second night, my husband said, "Do you think we could just keep him?" And I mean, because he's a great kid, he's amazing. And our son's attached. And I think the hardest for us, we've got the older 2 biological, and now the youngest is a biological. But when we lost our first 2 placements, all my son wanted was his brother back. So it was an older little boy and a younger little girl. I mean, they were both young, but they were so close in age with my kids, and all he wanted that Christmas was his brother back. That's what he asked Santa for. And when Santa couldn't bring that, it didn't matter what else was under the tree. He was heartbroken. But what that taught him, now he has empathy that most kids don't have. They've experienced that heartbreak, and there's good in that. There's good in experience. I mean, Jackson, you said it earlier that Satan comes when you're comfortable. And I think the same thing with kids. They need to learn that there is pain in how he's already had his first heartbreak. It's not going to be some girl later in high school that breaks his heart. He had his first heartbreak through foster care, and he's a stronger, more resilient, but more loving kid because of it. And I also would just urge you to think that you listening to this, you're probably, hopefully, a well-functioning member of society. These are kids who aren't. They didn't make this choice. You're making the choice to be a part of foster care. They're not. And so I think that that's a huge thing for me is like I get to make the choice to be involved. They don't. They didn't have that option. They came into it because they were brought into it. And so for us, we get to make the choice and we understand and can rationalize and can wrap our heads around it. And we know where to go for support and for help and for guidance where these kids don't. They're coming into this lost. And so like, yep, you're going to get attached. That's the whole point, you know?
Yeah. I like what you said there. They didn't choose to be a part of it, but you did. We're going to talk about Matthew chapter 25 and a few verses here in just a second. But that thought of not getting to choose, none of us chose to be alive, right? I can't remember my first sin, but I know that whatever it was separated me from God, and sin continues to separate me from God. But I know that through a relationship with Christ, I can come back to my Father and ultimately that relationship be restored. The text that we're going to look at for just a minute is Matthew chapter 25. I'm going to start in verse 34 and read through verse 40. This is what it says. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." If that's not a call to service for people in need, I don't know what is. The context here is it's on Judgment Day, and there's going to be people that are before God, and he's going to say, all right, if you were looking out for somebody who couldn't look out for themselves, come on, come with me. And then for the other group, doesn't look so good. But we who understand who Christ is and can help, we have this responsibility to bless others. Don't become so comfortable in your own life that you forget to do that, because God doesn't want us to be lukewarm. He wants us to be on fire for him. He wants us to be serving him. He wants us to be willing to make sacrifices. He wants us to do the hard thing, because that's exactly what Jesus did. And when we live like him, we are able to show others that same kind of love. And then something that I was listening to this morning was about giving and generosity. And a lot of times giving involves money, it involves time, it involves an action of some sort. But that is one of the most Christian things that there is, generosity. Christ came to earth, gave his life. There's nothing quite as generous as that for us so that we could be saved from our sins. And so if we are able to be generous like Christ and opening our doors to people in need, or we're able to give a little bit more, we are continuing to show, maybe it's just one person, Christ, but I think the influence is a lot deeper and broader than just one person. We can make a huge difference if we are willing to be generous.
Yeah, I think those verses are perfect for this episode and what Julie's been speaking on. I think it's important that we serve others, and especially like you've mentioned, the most vulnerable, they didn't make that choice. I know that it's not easy. Life isn't easy. And I know that there's a lot of hesitation in opening up your house and things like that, or I'm not qualified, or I wouldn't know what to do. God doesn't always call the equipped, right? But he will equip the called.
And so I think Jesus picking his disciples is one of the coolest things ever. Picked a bunch of fishermen, a tax collector that nobody liked, and then he went on and changed the world, and we're living in it 2,000 years later. There's no way in the world that he's picking the best person for the job. He's picking the person that's going to do the job the best.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't believe in ourselves, or we don't allow God to live through us, and so that we can complete those actions. It goes back to faith. We've got to have faith in him and believe that he is using us as a vessel to make a difference.
And there's no way, if you guys had talked to me, 20 years ago, that I would have thought, I didn't think I was going to be a mom. And so now to have 5 kids under my roof and, trying to convince my husband to make a new room upstairs for, I'm like, we could just build another wall. We could fit more kids here. He does. He makes you qualified. Like, he calls you and then he figures it out. I never in a million years would I have thought that this would be the direction that my life went. And here we are.
Absolutely. Serving others, especially those who are vulnerable, is one of the best ways we can serve Christ. So,
Yeah, and you don't have to necessarily open up your home. It can be these small things. You mentioned even the Hope House and Joy Closet started off small. So it's just kind of taking those first steps.
absolutely.
All right, so far everything has been a great conversation. And now we're going to kind of look at how we can take this and apply it to our daily lives. So first thing, we got 3 things for you. Be the open door. Sometimes God calls us just to be the doorway for others. We're always looking for that door opening for us, but we can also be the one that opens the door for someone else, whether that's through fostering. There's mentoring that we'll talk about here in just a second, just acts of kindness, and then just there's always room for donations, or we're talking about giving foster families a break and things of that nature. There's so many different things that we can do to help foster kids, to help these organizations that Julia's spoken about today without necessarily having to foster. And awareness goes a long way.
Being the open door is really cool. And the word foster, I Googled the definition of it because I was like, I just want to, that's a preacher thing to do. Google the definition of the word that you're going to be talking about. But it's to encourage or promote the development of. And you can put, insert word after of. And so the blank that I put was a child, to encourage or promote the development of a child. And I think the 3 of us in this room, we foster children to a degree. Tyler, you're a middle school principal, and so you're dealing with some of the most middle schoolers are unique, and so we have a unique opportunity to foster. And
It's such a weird time for kids. That age is really tough. They're trying to figure things out, much like if a new foster kid was coming into a new family. It's just something about 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that, and in today's society, so different than whenever I was in middle school. So I can't tell a kid, well, I know what it's like to be in middle school, because it's completely different now.
So whether it's fostering middle schoolers or people in our home or high schoolers or youth group, we all have a chance to develop positively a child, and how we do that in Christ is an awesome thing.
So the second one would be love is a verb. So faith isn't about what we believe, but it's what you do. So true faith is shown through action. So feeding, clothing, welcoming those in need. True faith, that's being a friend. I have experienced very quickly the postpartum, I had a 5-day oldest, I had a newborn, we were in the newborn stage, and then I was pregnant. So I was dealing with all of that, again, becoming a mom, but not just a mom, a geriatric mother, which is a whole another conversation. But people coming to me and saying, like, what do you need? Like, right now, what do you need? Those are the people that I'll never forget. Those people that they would show up at my door with diapers, or they would show up at my door with Coca-Cola or something, whatever it is. It's little things that show us God's love every single day.
Absolutely. I think of when you hear the phrase love is a verb, the passage that comes to mind is 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul is just describing the attributes of what love is. Love is patient, love is kind, it endures all things, it hopes all things, believes all things. You may not be good at all of the ways in which love is a verb, but I guarantee there's 1 or 2 that you could figure out. There is one way in which you can show love, especially to specifically what we're talking about, fostering.
So we've touched on it a little bit. I would assume after listening to this podcast, there's probably going to be some people that are a little bit more interested in at least learning about fostering, or to say the least, the Hope House. So before we kind of close up this episode, Julie, could you tell us a little bit about what the Hope House is and how our listeners could get involved?
For sure. So when children are removed from their homes for whatever reason, whether it's neglect or abuse or a variety of different things, their CPS or investigators will look into it, and then they'll remove them from the home. From there, they start the task of finding a more permanent placement for them, somewhere safe for them to land. And right now, there are fewer foster homes than there are foster children, so there's not a lot of places for them to go. There's very few in Christian County. Joy Closet serves a 9-county region, so there's just not a lot of homes. A couple years back, there was a picture that circulated the internet in a surrounding county where there was a child sleeping on the floor in a DCBS office. And you're thinking about this kid and you're thinking, we removed them from a horrible situation, but then we just put them on the floor in an office, which I would argue is not much better. And so what the Hope House does is that we were generously donated some land by 2 local farmers. And then Legacy Metal kind of came beside us and they helped us with the structure of a home. And what will happen is that DCBS will remove a child and then they'll call us and they'll say, we're coming to the house. So we will call our volunteer staff. Right now we've got 28 people that have signed up and gone through training. We'll call them and we'll say, head to the house. And they'll go to the house and they'll start the warm-up process where they'll, put cookies in the oven or start, a meal or whatever that looks like. Turn the TV on, make sure it's warm and toasty in there. And then the children will come in and the DCBS office, or the DCBS staff will have an office in there that has a window and a glass door so they can see the children at all times. But instead of the kids sitting in an office beside them and hearing their story told over and over, they'll be with volunteers who are loving on them, who are making sure that their bellies are full, making sure that they have clean clothes, making sure that there's 9 beds in the house total. So making sure that if they need to sleep, that they're able to sleep somewhere soft. And so the DCBS office will be there. The workers will stay there the entire time, but we will have volunteers and our staff there to make sure that all the needs are met of both the DCBS staff and the child entering into care. And then we have a giving room. So just like Joy Closet, what we do best is we give and we make sure needs are met. So there's a giving room in there and we'll have all brand new items in the Hope House, which differs a little bit from Joy Closet. Joy Closet accepts gently used items. So in there, they'll kind of gather up enough supplies for 72 hours in their first placement. So that way, when they go to a foster home, the foster parent isn't scrambling, which, Tyler, as he said earlier, he knows an intimate part of my story. And because they happen to live right next door to me, we had a placement this last March where we had nothing for them. By the time that they came through our doors at 9:45, we had nothing that we needed and we were completely overwhelmed. And luckily we had good people around us to rally around us, that community. But this will be the verb, right? This is the actionable thing. This home will be where we show love and make sure that they have everything that they need. So for the Hope House, we are still needing volunteers. We need people to work in the house. We need people to supply the contents for the house. We have a account set up with Herb Hayes where for the furniture, we don't have anything. We have the outside structure. We should have the internal walls put up hopefully by the end of next week. Our goal is to open at the May. So loosely by the end of May, we hope to be welcoming our first child in there. And so in order for that to happen, we need the community to show up in a big way.
Is there a website or anything that people could look for to find out more information about Hope House?
Yes, for sure. So you can go to joycloset.org/Hope House. You can also just email me, Julia@joycloset, and I can get you in touch with the coordinators for the house. And then just show up on Belmont Hill, which is where Joy Closet is. We've got a floor plan up there. We can show you what we currently are working with and how it's going. We can show you pictures and we can help you get involved.
I know you've had some people coming out and praying and doing prayer walks and writing on the studs.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's pretty cool. And that's getting God in the foundation. I love what you're doing and I love what Joy Closet's doing. And we appreciate the fostering that is taking place.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you guys with a key thought. The love you pour into others is never wasted, because when you serve them, you serve Christ. Just like the text we read from Matthew chapter 25, the least that we help is helping Christ. And so when we're able to pour into those in need, it's not wasted. Even if we think our time is being sucked away, or it's not worth it, or you can come up with any excuse you want. If you are serving Christ, it's not a waste.
Julia, we appreciate you being on. We look forward to others listening, and we know that it's going to be a cool episode for people, and we hope that more get involved in fostering. So action steps this week for you guys. How can you foster faith in your own life? Maybe it's mentoring, volunteering, or just showing up for someone in need. What doors can you open up this week for someone else? You want to tell us a little bit about next week?
Yep. So next week, we're going to have John Wheeler on the podcast. He's a former elder here at Southside Church of Christ. The title of the episode is going to be Staying Connected to God's Power. We're going to be talking about faith. We're going to be looking at how we can continue to serve him even when the wind is blowing. He used to work for Pennyroyal Rural Electric Company, and so he knows a lot about when power gets disconnected. It's also important, I think we're talking about the Joy Closet and Hope House, and the only reason that people get involved with, not the only reason, but a big reason that people get involved in that is because of their faith. People who understand Christ and how he loved children, people involved in foster care seem to have a really good understanding of that, and so I'm very appreciative of that. I'm going to close with a prayer, and then the podcast is yours. God, we thank you for today and this time to come together and discuss the work that's going on in this community. I'm thankful for Julia and all the people involved in Hope House and Joy Closet and the work they do. Father, I ask that you allow them to be able to be a beacon of light in this community. Be with the kids in foster care. Be with the parents who are taking in foster children. Be with the families who are trying to get their lives back together and in order so that they can be the parents that they need to be. Father, we're so thankful for Jesus and the example that he gave us, the service that he showed us. Help us to live like him and be better servants for him. It's in his name we pray. Amen. Thank you for listening to Alter Your Algorithm.